Welcome back! More ACT reading, boys and girls. Woo! Alright, that song was called Bad Boys by Whitesnake, so I guess you could say it's for the boys. Alright, let's go through passage 2. I'll get my answers once I can find them. I think I've got them right here. Passage 2, which hopefully you did. Look out. Hopefully these videos have been helping you as well. I know they've been helping me immensely. If we look, passage 2 was about apples. Okay? Not oranges, because you can't compare those. Apples. Alright? So it's just like real class, going through the papers. All right, first off, number 11. The author's use of the words and the phrases thickets, stretching like an extensive forest in every direction as far as the eye could see. Hopefully you can, look out, okay? If you're talking about just how enormous these thickets are, that's the magnitude. That's the extent of it. So we're going to go magnitude right there. Get out of here, Bob. Thank you. Okay. Going on to number 12. All right, if we scroll over here. The author of the passage most likely states that the wild apples growing in Tian Shan look like apples found in the local grocery store. Well, why would the author do that? Obviously, it's to show something. And what it's designed to do is to show that the ancestor of the modern domesticated apple was in that valley. Okay? Your grocery stores don't get all their apples from Tian Shan. That would be impractical. We don't know that it's the most popular variety. It's most widespread. We don't know it's most popular. And it wasn't anything new. It's an apple as old as time. Number 13 was D. Passage A makes which of the following claims about plant species? You go right back to the passage. 157 plant species found in Kazakhstan are either direct precursors or close wild relatives. And how you do that is, you've got that number 157. There you go, right there. You highlight this. Let me see if I can put a little target on here. Yeah, there we go. All right, you just reread that sentence and then find which one aligns with that in number 13, and that's how you figure that out. Number 14, passage B suggests that Vavilov was motivated to become an agricultural scientist. He was in the Soviet Union, and if you know anything about socialism in the Soviet Union, is that food-wise, people end up starving. Okay? You think it's bad when the store runs out of toilet paper. Okay? He wanted to help feed others. That's why he was doing all this research, which of course made him a criminal. Number 15, in the Soviet Union made him a criminal. 15, in the Avengers universe, well, makes you an enemy of the state, I guess, if you're Tony Stark. The author of passage B uses the phrase whittle away. When you whittle away at something, means gradually over time you make it decay or you lessen it in its quantity. And whittle hooks right up. There's your hook up with gradually. They were those species were gradually lost. Number 16 should have been fairly obvious. As it's used in lines 82 to 83, the phrase named and nurtured most nearly means identified. So you name something, you identify. Okay? Wally! Bob. Blake. Okay? If you name it, you identify it. All right? So let's go to number 17. In passage B, it can be most reasonably inferred from the third paragraph that centers of crop diversity. Well, when do they become important? Well, you need them when you need them. They're not so important when people want to do research on different plant species. Okay? it's not trying to research, it's not trying to just get more department. Like, hey, I want more variety in this department. Let's go out to Afghanistan. So that leaves us with B or D. There is a reduction sometimes in crop variety, but it's not because the plant breeders and the entomologists are fighting. Okay, there's not a bunch of bug researchers and apple breeders throwing down. So that's totally wrong. We're gonna go with B on number 17 because they're researching a new variety of the crop because they need to diversify. And the hookup there is between new variety and diversity. Number 18 was H, which describes the difference between the two passages. It can't be F because it's not defensive. It's not like, oh yeah, well this should be. That's not defensive. It's not solemn. It's like, today we will memorialize Mr. Vavilov and his hunger. No, that solemn's too far. Okay? H is like, hey, isn't this guy great for what he did? And then passage B, boom, cautionary. It warns us that we're thinning out our apple varieties a little too much. There's nothing accusatory. Again, you look at those word choices. Okay, it's like, hey, Vavilov did a great job, and then the second one's like, well, we got to watch out for this. That's cautionary. Number 19 was A. B provides more information about the reduction in apple varieties. It talks about the reduced diversity much over the past 400 years. And then going on, number 20 is going to be H. And this one was an interesting one. Passage A quotes Vavilov as saying, I could see with my own eyes that I had discovered the center for the origin of the apple. Okay, well, where does Vavilov, here's the thing, the key word here is Vavilov. So I'm going to go to passage B. And as I look through, I don't see Vavilov. I'm looking for a capital V. I don't see Vavilov. Okay, see a little Vavilov there. All right. Kazakh conservationist Tatyana Solova credits him with first recognizing that Kazakhstan was the center of origin and diversity for apples. It's not surprising, she concedes, that when Vavilov first came here, he was amazed. They grew as a forest. This is one reason he stated that this is probably where the apple was born. They're quoting Tatyana Solova, but there's no quotes of Vavilov at all. So that's how you know that it's a paraphrase and not a quote. Solova paraphrases Vavilov. So they quote Solova, but she paraphrases Vavilov, which is why we go with H for number 20. So I'll give you a minute, if you will, get the PDF that I attached with this for passages 3 and 4. Get that up, all right? And we'll go over that in about 10 seconds. That was my watch, not my cell phone. Okay, so this is passage 3. It's about humanities. When you take the ACT, you get a literary passage, a historical passage, a scientific passage, and a humanities passage. So let's start off with this then. Let me zoom in here again so we can kind of see a little bit better. All right. And let me set the stopwatch up. Oops. Reset my whole watch there. There we go. All right, so let's get started on this. Near the end of his 8 years as a recording session musician, tenor saxophonist Chu Berry landed a short-lived spot with Count Basie's orchestra. Standing in for one of the Basie's band Two Tenor Giants, Berry took the lead solo on Oh Lady Be Good, a 1924 Gershwin song that Basie had played for years. In the 28 seconds that the solo lasted, we are treated no less than the musical personification of mind and body working together in divine tandem. When you hear the recording for the first time, you're likely to wonder why you've never heard of Chu Berry before. So, I'm going to bracket that with my little tool there. All right, when you take this, you're going to take it on the computer. So, why you've never heard of him is pretty simple. A lot of hardcore jazz buffs don't know much about him. Berry was a solid session player who turns up on recordings from Basie, Bessie Smith, Fletcher Henderson, Billie Holiday, but he did not cut many sessions himself as a leader, and when he soloed, he worked within the recording constraints of the era and the swing genre, so that's a qualification there. Fast-moving 78s with solos lasting no more than 32 beats. So that talks about those conventions, and so I'm going to highlight that as well. The people who loved Berry were not surprisingly other tenor players, a situation leading to the dreaded musician's musician tag. But that's not nearly praise enough to describe Chu Berry, who when given opportunity displayed a musical dexterity that would be envied by future generations of hornmen. Berry faced a lot of other horn players having to grind out long and hard until something memorable burst through. The prejudice and expectations of the listening public and the accepted wisdom of what is and isn't art in a given medium. In this case, swing was fodder for dance parties, not music worthy of study. The claim there comes at the end of the paragraph. So again, I'm going to bracket that. Oddly enough, Berry's geniality might help explain his failure to court history's favor. It wasn't in his nature to call attention to himself or his playing. Born in 1908 in the black middle class of Wheeling, West Virginia, the laid-back, affable Berry attended West Virginia State in Charleston, where he switched from alto to tenor and exhibited a willingness to fit in that characterized his presence in so many dance bands. He was a rare artist who refused to put his interests above those of the band, even if that meant playing ensemble passages rather than taking a helping allotment of solo breaks. College proved a training ground for Berry, the bandsman, as he teamed up with a number of amateur outfits. He never played simply to show off. Instead, he tried to bring out the positive attributes of any given situation or setting. I like that when I annotated. Later, when Berry is performing with the Callaway Ensemble, we hear some ragged, out-of-tune playing until Berry's first few solo notes emerge. The other players, no longer languidly blowing through their charts, surge up behind him, all fighting fit. Once Berry finishes his solo, the shenanigans resume. So we kind of get a little more background as personality there. Next, after making his way to New York, Berry immediately became a presence and soon was in demand. The great jazz orchestras of the swing era were formed by musical directors and arrangers. Duke Ellington, who drew the acclaim. The sidemen were musical traveling salesmen, that's a new term, who sold someone else's wares in the best style they could manage. So we got a new term there. It was with Fletcher Henderson that Berry began to ditch some of the sidemen's subservient trappings. For starters, Henderson wrote in keys that were rare for jazz orchestras of his day, and his somber, indigo-inflected voicings were ideal for a player of Berry's introspective approach to his instrument. Berry sounds as if he's being swallowed by his sax. Blues in C-sharp minor is odd, haunting, and ultimately relaxing. A Berry solo in it is slightly off mic, making the listener feel as though he's been playing for some time before we finally hear him. The effect is unnerving, as if we weren't paying close attention. That's weird. In June 1940, Callaway granted Berry a showcase piece, Ghost of a Chance, the sole recording of Berry's career that featured him from start to finish. It was his body and soul, a response to Coleman Hawkins' famous recording. This is getting its own paragraph, so it's got to be important. Intended not as a repost to a rival, but as the other half of a dialogue. Its rubato lines are dissembled from the music meant to accompany it, which is Spartan to begin with. This may be Berry's one and only instance of indulgence on a record. A cathedral of a solo in its flourishes and angles, reflexivity. If sunlight could pass through music, Ghost of a Chance would funnel it out in the broadcast spectrum of colors. 4 minutes, 30 seconds with some explanations in there. If I could read that out loud and annotate it and explain it to you in 4 minutes and 30 seconds, you can cut that time down to about 4 minutes, 3 minutes and 30 seconds in your head. Okay, and then you give yourself 4 minutes to do the questions. One of my students in AP did that this year. He got a 31. It works, okay? So hopefully you're watching the video because I think you're going to have an advantage over people who aren't. Number 21, based on the passage, how did Berry's personality affect his career? Well, if I look at my notes, he was a very genial fellow. That means he was very accommodating. He kind of let other people have their way. So he's not ambitious. He's not competitive. Okay? B looks good. All right? B looks good. C looks good. D is about snobbish arrogance. That does not look good at all. It's not about snobbish arrogance at all. So I'm looking at B and C. His career suffered when he spent more time socializing than practicing. It never says that. That is obsolete. Okay, so we're going to go with C. He's modest, easygoing. It kept him out of the spotlight, and it gave him less attention as the performer. That goes exactly with what the passage says. Okay? Oops. Let's go. Good thing I have a backup here. Okay. Let's go to number 22. It's still not showing up. We're having technical difficulties. Aha. And here we go. Number 22. The author mentions Barry's solo in Oh Lady Be Good. Why? Well, he had a solo. That has nothing to do with not having heard of him. He had a solo. He never said it was better than Count Basie, so it's either G or H. We don't get that contrast until the end. This is, remember, at the beginning of the passage, so it's G. All it does is give us an example of something that he did. Number 23. The author points out that many serious jazz enthusiasts know little about Barry in order to what? Well, he doesn't criticize scholars at any time at all. He doesn't criticize the scholars, so we can nix that one. If you look at B, demonstrate that the author is more knowledgeable. No, he doesn't ever come across as, so I'm more knowledgeable than this guy. No, it's not about that. C, illustrate the secret. There's nothing about secrecy there. The guy was modest, but that's not CIA stuff. So it's either D or we're screwed. Explain why it's likely readers would be. Well, yeah, there we go. Here's why you've never heard of him. Okay, that's exactly what it does. All right, you can't overthink these. You can't afford to do that. According to the author, Barry's solos as a recording session musician were often very short. Wait a minute, we annotated something about that. Where it said it was the constraints of the era, that he couldn't do more than 32 beats, which is like 32 seconds. Okay? It wasn't because he wasn't very good. That's just stupid. Okay? I don't know how you get more attention playing ensemble in a group. That doesn't make sense. The 32 beats thing, recording constraints. And if you go back in the passage, that's exactly what it says. Let's go on to number 25. The author indicates that during Barry's time as a musician, swing music remember, it was just for dance parties. It wasn't considered serious. It was just for dance parties. Okay, just for dance parties. Let's look at D. Music for dance parties, not music for study. There we go. That goes with it. And because we're in a hurry, we got to go on to 26. Okay? You don't have all day to consider the rightness and wrongness on every single question. You got to be efficient. You got to go quick. Okay? Right, Blake? That's right. Number 26. As it's used in line 35, the word court, well, dang it, we got to go back to the passage, Andy. Okay? So what was it, line 35? Oddly enough, it might help explain his failure to court history's favor. In other words, to get history on his side, to win history's favor. So, let's go back to that question. To get them to favor him. Well, he's not romantically pursuing history. That would be weird. Okay? He's not provoking it. He wants to attract it. He wants to get people to like him. So he's seeking to attract it. That's going to be F. Number 27 in the 7th paragraph, the author compares sidemen to traveling salesmen. He never tells you how they traveled, whether it's trains, planes, or automobiles, okay? He never says they had side jobs. You know, Duke Ellington sold apples and Chew Berry sold produce. No, okay, so now it's either C or D. It doesn't show anything about the hiring practices. We never learned anything about there. So again, it's C. And that's why on those other questions like 24, 25, that's why you got to go so fast on those. You take 4 seconds on a question like number 25, so you can take 30 seconds or 20 seconds on a question like number 27. Let's go to number 28. The author describes blues in C sharp. We go back to the passage. Okay, we have Ghost of a Chance. Blues in C sharp. Odd, haunting, relaxing, and indigo, which is the color of my Hyundai. So odd, relaxing, okay. Boom, there we go. J. That, you just match it up. You look, and how you can do that is you look for the title because it's set off by quotes. Now, if it was like a book or something, it'd be italicized. But you look for the title, you look for the capital letters, you go there, you find the descriptions, you hook it up, and you go on to 29. A question like that should take you about 10 seconds tops. Number 29, according to the author, what is unique about the June rendition of Ghost of a Chance? Well, we go back to Ghost of a Chance, okay? And as we look at that, it's a cathedral of a solo. It has flourishes, angles. It's just the bomb diggity best thing that's ever been recorded, according to this guy. It doesn't say alto. It doesn't say public. It doesn't say blending into the background. It features him from beginning to end. I think I was jumping ahead there to number 30 for a second. Cathedral of a solo, yes, awe-inspiring. So we've got A there for 29 and F there for 30. All right, your job is to go through passage 4, read it. The answers are on the Google Doc and come up with the explanations. All right, thank you and have a peachy morning or evening or whenever you're doing this.